Amahle was born on the borders of many worlds. In Johannesburg, South Africa, she was the daughter of a Zimbabwean mother, Naledi, and a South African father, Tinashe. Their love story had crossed borders long before Amale's birth, and it was a story of resilience and connection, a bond formed between languages, cultures, and histories. From an early age, Amahle understood the weight of her name. It was a name that carried the echoes of two nations and multiple identities. It was a name that connected her to both the land of her mother's birth and the country where she had grown up. But it was also a name that caused her to wrestle with belonging. Who was she, really? South African, Zimbabwean, or something else entirely? Her parents, passionate and loving, never pushed her to choose. They taught her to embrace both her mother and father's roots, to celebrate them. But the world outside their home was far less kind to those who didn't fit into neat categories. When Amahle was 8, they moved to Harare for a while. In Zimbabwe, her mother's family embraced her with open arms. But even there, Amahle felt the tug of her South African identity. At school, she was constantly asked, "Where are you really from? And which part of South Africa do you belong to?" At first, she didn't understand the question. To Amahle, she was simply herself, a blend of two worlds. But as she grew older, the question became sharper. Identity became a battleground. At 13, Amahle found herself back in Johannesburg, with all the confusion and pain that came with growing up. She had inherited her mother's quick wit and her father's charm, but she also carried the weight of feeling like an outsider in both countries. Her father, Tinashe, worked tirelessly to support his family, and her mother, Naledi, ran a successful nonprofit aimed at helping African immigrants and refugees. They were both driven by a sense of duty to their community and to the world. But that often meant they were absent in Amale's life, leaving her to figure out who she was on her own. When Amahle began high school, she turned to her writing as a way to understand herself. She wrote poems, essays, and short stories about the experiences of living between worlds, trying to reconcile her identities. But as much as she poured herself into her writing, there were still moments of doubt. At 16, Amale's writing began to gain recognition. She was invited to speak at events, read her poetry at schools, and join discussions about race, identity, and the immigrant experience. It was a heady time for her, and she relished in the attention and affirmation. But there was also a price to pay. Amale's mother, Naledi, had always been the strong, steadfast figure.